There's a reason why we don't plant fall crops in the summer. Understanding the season you're in is incredibly crucial to understanding what you can handle. Come along and we'll talk about it. Hi, my name is Amanda from Learning to Love Well, and I think it's like 10 o'clock at night. I just got my kiddos to bed. We just did our last reader of the day, and we did our Bible devotional, and now they're in bed. We have all decided to just get cozy for right now, and we have been reading a book from our library called Where Hope Prevails. It's got this weird like sheet on the top of it, but so that's what we've been doing, and we are thoroughly enjoying that book. It is a really good fiction Christian story that definitely points you back towards the Lord and a good living faith relationship with the Lord. So for that, I am very happy and very pleased. Today we're going to talk about times and seasons. A lot of times if you turn on a YouTube video, including mine, which I try to be really transparent, I try to, portray both my flaws and my wins, I guess you could say. Although a lot of times I try to provide encouragement because I myself have been discouraged during homeschool at times, whether it's with a particular student or whether it's just self-doubt dealing with, am I really enough? Am I really going to be able to do this? And over the years, the Lord has gotten me through each one of these hurdles, and by resting and trusting in Him. And so today, I want to talk about times and seasons, which is very crucial if you plan on homeschooling for the long haul. When most people think about times and seasons, they think about summer, spring, winter, and fall, and rightly so. Or they think about times and dates and things like that. In homeschool, there are going to be seasons that you can do things very structurally, that you can take on the extra stuff, and then there are going to be seasons where you can do the bare minimum, and that's okay. I know that that seems very controversial, and I might even have someone tell me that it's just being lazy, but it's not. And I want to give you an example from my life. So I have been caring for someone in my family who needs extra help every once in a while. And I'm the go-to person for that. Well, I also homeschool 4 kids. And during that time, we did not have a ton of extracurriculars as far as extra sciences, we didn't have extra sciences, we didn't have extra readers, we didn't have all of this stuff that we do in this season. The main reason is because a lot of times we would homeschool on the go. We had a lot of appointments that we had to go to, and we were going back and forth at the time because me and my husband were geographically separated. So he was stationed in Hawaii and we were here so that I could care for that family member. And so it was just me with 4 kids caring for the kids, caring for my family member, doing the normal household things, and on top of that, homeschooling. During that season, I had to be realistic. And I don't even know that I understood that I was being realistic at that point, but what we did is we focused on core. We focused on things like our Horizons phonics, our Horizons math, our penmanship, and we focused on the readers that came with the Horizons phonics, and we did not have a whole lot of other bulky curriculum. Now, even though this may not seem like the ideal thing, and sorry guys, if my hands look stained, they are clean. I'm just having trouble getting my tomato I guess you could say my tomato junk juice, whatever, when you're clipping tomatoes, off my hands right now. So I'm going to have to scrub them with like some lemon or something like that. But anyway, so during that season, we had the bare minimum, and that is okay. You know, I know that you see a ton of beautiful curriculum, you see the rooms, you see, you know, these really amazing homeschoolers that look like they've got it all together and that they're basically teaching Harvard Law in their homeschool. And if you are in a season where you can get the core in and then just read to your kids, do that. It doesn't have to be crazy. At that point in time, we weren't doing crazy science experiments. We didn't have a bunch of STEM kits. We didn't have all the extras because 1, we didn't have a place for them. 2, I was constantly on the run. And 3, it was just me. So with that being said, I had to be realistic with what I could actually handle. Fast forward a few months. After that, I was still by myself. I was still on the run, and I had a walking toddler. So during this time, I had a baby who was starting to walk, starting to crawl, and getting into everything. And I had to make a choice what we were going to do. And one of my solutions was we went into the kids' room. We had this giant recliner, and we blocked off the entrance to the door with the recliner so my youngest child could play, climb on the chair, get in the chair with mommy, and I would read to the kids and help them all with their homeschool in that tiny room. Now, most people would think that's not ideal, but that's what we had. And the kids still came away learning a whole bunch of stuff. You know, the kids still progressed in their age groups and in their studies, even though it might not be picture perfect and ideal. It also kept the tiny tot from feeling like he couldn't move or do anything during that time, which was really important because he also needed that chance to learn. He also needed that chance to be able to develop his motor skills and not feel confined or maybe chasing him. I had to be able to sit there with my kids long enough, but I needed him to have the freedom where he wasn't going to get into trouble or get into anything that he didn't need to get into. And so for that season, that worked for us. Now we fast forward a little bit more, and now we are homeschooling in the master bedroom. We're doing this because, again, I can confine the toddler, although he's not really a toddler anymore. He is like a pre-K, where he can come do his mini curriculum with me, and then he can go play on the floor. And then the children can round robin. We can do readers in here. We have enough space on the floor so that the kids can play games, or like we have sight word SWAT, or we have Monopoly or Scrabble. We played Scrabble like I think a couple weeks ago, or was it last week? And we have the space to do things a little bit more interactive and fun on the floor in here. And that to me is absolutely great. Each season is going to look a little different, especially if you have a lot on your plate. There are a lot of stay-at-home moms that the only thing they do is homeschool, and that is great. I am no shame in that. I've always had a little bit extra on my plate, whether it was just that as a military wife, a lot of times I would hold down the fort by myself. When we moved to the farm, obviously I had a lot more to do. When we took on the responsibility of caring for another family member when they need it, it meant that my days could look a lot different. But instead of just putting my kids in public school because it was, overwhelming, we fit homeschool to be able to fit the time and the season that we were in. Another thing that I would encourage you to is if you are in a stressful season, is to make sure that you have the flexibility to take breaks when you need it. This has been really great for our homeschool. Now, some people homeschool just the basic standard school schedule. We actually do year-round homeschool, and we don't take a long summer break. And we do that because if there is a day that is very, very hectic in our schedule, or for like planting time out in the garden, we took that week off. We reserve the right in our homeschool to take any time of the year off, and it doesn't just have to be the summer. And it doesn't have to be a whole week at a time. It doesn't have to be a whole month at a time. It can be only a few days if we need it. We were able to take a couple weeks off when my children's cousins came down and when my cousins came down. So the kids didn't have to do homeschool at all. When we had a family emergency and we had to take off to Ohio, we brought a lot of our homeschool with us, and we were able to get a good full homeschool day one of the days that we were there. But we didn't get it all the way done every day, and that's okay. Because we go straight through and year round, most of the time we have more flexibility. In my state, 180 days is required in homeschool, and we're supposed to keep regulatory hours, which is fine. But that means that I need to have the days that I can fit what we need to do when we need to do it. And so for us, having that flexibility of going year round and then just simply taking the days that we need has been very valuable to us. If you are really struggling with whatever current season you're in and you are dedicated to homeschooling, remember that it doesn't have to look like everybody else's. Some days, our homeschool looks like us doing readers and core subjects. And when I say readers, like a novel that we read together. Or we have, and this is just from the local library, by the way. So, didn't even cost me anything to rent or anything else. And a lot of local libraries actually have a digital format that you can download if you go to the local library website, and you can download it and then get whatever books you want to read and just do a read aloud. Kids pick up a lot of language skills from reading, by the way. There's a lot of words in a lot of novels that you don't hear in everyday life, and you can stop and you can look up those words and see what they mean, see how to pronounce them. All of those are really good language tools. Then you have books on specific things. So if you want to pick up a book about weather, Dr. Seuss does pretty easy books on that. If you want to, study anything of interest to your children, pick up a book and just read it simply at night, or read it first thing in the morning after devotion. Another good thing is reading your Bible with your kids. If you sit down and go through the Psalms, or if you sit down and go through the Proverbs, we've gone through the Proverbs once already this year, and we're going back through them at a faster pace. And there's so much we learn. So one, my kids learn a ton of vocabulary from the Bible. They're learning the actual Word of God, which is amazing. And they're learning how to understand what is being conveyed by the author. And all of that is very valuable to language arts. If you don't have a time to sit down with a million manipulatives, sometimes what I do is I just take an Expo marker, and I don't know where my kids put it because we were just working on it, and a white erase board. And we'll draw pictures to try to make it understandable. I did that earlier today by drawing a fraction circle, cutting it in half, or a circle, dividing it into fractions. We talked about the numerator, what the definition of the numerator was, what the definition of the denominator was, and it was fairly simple. I think sometimes we make it harder than we have to because we think it should be harder. When really, sometimes the most simple things in homeschool that you can do in the more simplistic way is not only more effective, but it's also easier on mom and the sanity of your kids. I hope this helps someone to know that your season, if you're in a crazy season, make homeschool fit your crazy season, not your crazy season always having to conform, or everything in your life having to conform with your homeschool schedule. There are beautiful homeschoolers out there that only homeschool 4 days a week. There are homeschoolers out there that do 6 weeks on and 1 week off. There are homeschoolers that do the public system method. There are homeschoolers that homeschool on the run. They homeschool in an RV and travel the world. There's so many different types of homeschool. Check with your state to make sure what is required. There's a lot of freedom there. Most states have a lot of freedom in homeschool. You can actually look on the SD or HSLDA. You can look up with your state the required homeschooling requirements. And as long as you're staying in within those parameters, there's still a lot of freedom that you can do. So I hope that helps. I hope it encourages you that if you are in any kind of season that is a little harder, like tiny children and you have some older children, or if you're in a season where maybe you have a tragedy in the family and maybe you don't have 5 or 6 or 7 hours that you can process with that. Maybe you don't have 6 or 7 hours to sit down and do a bunch of homeschool plus readers. Maybe you only have a good solid 2 hours to get it all knocked out. Maybe you're in a busy season with trying to build up a business. Maybe, you're a single mom and you're trying to do this around not having any help. There are so many creative ways to homeschool. I encourage you to always pray about it. Jesus has way better strategies than we'll ever have. And I just ask that you don't give up. That if it's a hard season, God's grace can get you through. And I just encourage you to stick with it. All right, Mama. God bless you, and good night.